Hello again and welcome. Now, last episode I spoke with instructional designers Paloma, Amy, and Lori about methods of retention for learned materials and touching on the impact of building a learning culture in the workplace. Moving on, this episode, I will be continuing my conversation with them on the forgetting curve, discussing how creating meaningful content can help learners stay engaged and retain information, thereby combating the forgetting curve.
Talking about some of the challenges and barriers. And when we talk about, learners, and we talk about what their motivation is, and, taking it from the learner perspective and what's in it for me, people are motivated intrinsically, generally, and extrinsically. But as you go into adult learning, it's more intrinsic. Adult learners, it's more task and being human attachment to whatever it is. So there's those two different aspects that happen. And so, as we're thinking about the motivation behind our learners, the gamification, while it's fun and it's cool, and there's some things, the badges and all of that, and the bells and whistles, we have to hit them on more of a humanistic side, more on the empathy and, why does this really apply to what I'm doing, and when am I going to use this? Because there's nothing like sitting through a training, and we've all sat through those bad trainings, where you sit there and about minute 10 out of hour 4, you've already shut off because you can't see the connection and you can't see how it affects you. So right. I think that looking at the barriers and what is it that we can do, and what are the methods to stop those kind of trainings? How do we stop those trainings? How do we create trainings so that they don't go into those 4 hours, the 8 hours of no learning, and it's a waste of time, and now you've turned somebody's opinion into a negative opinion on learning whatever process it is. So they're not going to be ready for the next learning because they're already going to have forgotten the first one. Even though they sat there for 4 hours, they didn't remember any of it. So how do we move, and how do we support learners, and how do we develop training that supports learners on that field?
That's also something that's very subjective to the learner itself. Learners learn in different ways, and certain ways of learning influence their memory retention as well.
And that falls, Dario, that's a great point. According, I don't know if you've read anything by Dorian Peters, just looking at the way that e-learning specifically. So I know we're talking about different types of learning for adults, but e-learning, talking about the learning is social, emotional, and visual. So you've got the three concepts to it, right? So, we're talking about the visual part of it with the infographics, or a video, having the visual portion of it, that somebody doesn't want to see the death by PowerPoint, with everything up on the screen and having to read it themselves while somebody is reading the exact same thing. I've had many and many classes and courses and trainings like that, just keeping all of that in mind, that, making those connections and allowing them, it's always like, I don't know if you remember as a kid, the choose your own adventure type thing, if I'm in this scenario, what am I going to do? And giving them the opportunity to apply it to their own job, and what decisions they're going to have to make. And so creating experiences that simulate that.
Yeah, and that makes it more meaningful. Yeah, I think that meaningfulness of the information is important. Whether you're a teenager or you're an adult. I know we're in the adult learning world, but I think a lot of those same practices definitely carry forward in adult learning. And I think that when we talk about, that our learners coming with expertise and prior knowledge, it might not be expertise or prior knowledge in the topic of the training event, but they do have prior experiences and knowledge, which I think is important to consider, even if they're novices in the topic, because you can really leverage the context that they already have from their own personal life experiences and really pull that in. So there's not such a gap between what their experience is and what the content is. You can really help and thoughtfully bridge that gap with some learner analysis and just understanding their background a little bit and their characteristics when you're designing.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you for sharing your insights on how creating meaningful content can help learners stay engaged and retain information. This wraps up our 5-Minute University series on the forgetting curve, and be sure to stay tuned for our next 5-Minute University topic and discussion. Thank you all for listening in, and we hope you gained some insights. Until next time.